Welcome back to the Lang Trailers podcast. This is going to be a mini series about how to run and grow a restroom trailer rental company. Today's topic is going to be all about how to scale your restroom trailer rental company. I'm Steve Grice. This is Adam Grice. We're the owners of Lang Trailers, and we're here today with Michael Viramontes, the owner of the Lavatory. Michael's been a customer with us since he started 6 years ago. And I'm going to kind of let him give the background on himself here.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I own the Lavatory. Restrooms. We're located primarily out west. We service California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah, and a few other states. Started, just 6 years ago this month with the first phone call to your guys' team. I had no idea or had no knowledge of restroom trailers. I just knew that they were somewhat popular being in the event rental business and going to events and whatnot. And I received my first trailer in August at the job site. And that from there, we've grown from one trailer to about 150 now. So it's been quite a ride.
So quick growth.
Yeah, I remember that first phone call and how you were in the rental side. Your family grew up in it. That's kind of how you knew about trailers.
Yeah, so my family owns a business called they sold it recently. Expo Events and Tents, where we do festivals, tents, canopies, electrical distro, trade show equipment, tabletop, linens, like the whole shebang, right? And so I went to BYU. I graduated with a degree in business management. And while at BYU, I actually worked for Diamond Tents and Events, which is, if you're in the event industry or event world, Diamond is a huge player this side of the Mississippi. Like, they do some Barrett Jackson, World Ag Expo. They're a big time player. So the idea was I worked for them for 4 years so that one day I would take over a family business. When they use POR, they use the same style, Aztec tents, like all very similar equipment as we did back at home. So the idea was take over the family business, but as soon as I graduated college and went back home, quickly realized my dad was never going to give me a raise. And so I had to figure out some other way to come up with some kind of supplemental income while leveraging like some kind of business that I could leverage my current position at Expo and yet be able to manage it, because I still had to work at Expo. I still had to go set up tents and all that stuff, right?
The joys of party rental.
Oh my gosh, party rental. And so I could still run trailers, party rental, and then utilize the sales team we had at Expo ideally, right? And restroom trailers, we would get calls for them at Expo, but we would always refer them out. And so that's what really got me thinking about restroom trailers. Like, okay, why are we sending this business out? And then I was talking to one of the sales reps about it. I'm like, how much do these things even cost to rent? And I was like, it's like the rental of a tent. And I'm like, you're telling me they drop off this freaking bathroom box and it costs the same to rent this bathroom box as it took 6 guys to set up this tent that I have to tear down, clean up, hope it doesn't rain or have wind the day of install or the day of tear down. Like, anyway, I have to deal with cement weights or stakes. Like, just nightmares come back. And so that's what introduced me. Forgive me, long-winded, but and so then I started making calls. And I called all your competitors, to be honest with you, and you guys, but you're the only ones that answered the phone and got back to me.
All right.
No, I kid you not. I submitted so many requests, and I was just a small fish, and well, obviously I wasn't even a fish, right? And so no one got back to me, and then I'm pretty sure it was you, Adam, who first spoke with me, and then resonating that you guys come from the event rental background, and so instantly I was able okay, these guys know what I'm talking about, or know where I'm coming from.
Yep. The frustrations you're going through.
Dude, man. Yeah, just labor alone in the event rental world is just, and in California for that matter.
I could only imagine that.
So that's how I got involved into everything, and now it seems like I've always done this. It's really.
6 years flies by. That's for sure,
dude. It's it definitely hasn't always been easy, but but I don't have the nightmares when it's windy outside or when I'm unafraid of guys showing up or chairs are dirty, the linens are wrong color, or anyway, you know what I'm referring. Yeah, those kind of things. But
So, Michael, you mentioned when you got started, you were still working, for your parents at Expo and started this company.
Yeah.
So that's a question I get from a lot of my customers, or the plan they have. They work in some business field. Maybe they're a plumber, maybe they're a pharmacist, a school teacher, whatever it is, and they're looking to get into this on the side and to grow it to the point that it can become a standalone business. How did you handle that in the beginning? How were you able to do both?
well, at the beginning, it's mainly just based on scheduling, right? So if someone wanted a trailer, I told them when it was being delivered, and that's based upon my availability. Like, okay, well, Friday after 5 o'clock, so I'll be there. We have a busy delivery schedule today, so I can only be there between 5 and 7. And people didn't question it, or deliver Saturday morning. And this is specifically for events, right? And then I would fill my commitment, borrowed my dad's old truck. No, for real. Like, it's kind of crazy to think about. It leaked oil, and my dad's just kind of cheap like that, as you kind of feel from the conversation. Sorry, Dad, if you watch this, but he knows it. And so certain driveways I wouldn't drive on because I would be too afraid of leaking oil. And but yeah, I'd take his truck and we would just keep the commitments, pick it up on Sunday night, and clean it usually that day when I picked up. And if you want a side gig, right, you have to work on your extra time or your side time. And that's really, it just takes a lot of sweat equity to get to a point where you can hire people and you can scale it up. But you have to know the process before you can create a system for that,
What was that number like? As far as, did you find that, because you grew pretty rapidly. I think if I remember correctly, you picked up that really big job, perhaps during or before you even received your first trailer. I feel like you had ordered your second trailer around the time that I was shipping your first trailer.
Yeah. So what happened is I got a lead. You guys have been great to send leads, and I'll just tell people. But so I believe it was Steve. I'm pretty sure it was Steve.
That's debatable.
I'm not sure, but he sent me a lead for a long-term job about an hour and a half away from me. So you guys are in Pennsylvania, I'm in California, so it's anyway. And and so I didn't own any trailers. I don't even think I bought anything at that point.
Okay.
But you sent me a lead, like, hey, here's a lead, bid on it. And I'm like, okay. And I had no idea. I asked you guys for some advice, like what kind of pricing should I estimate? And it was a 6-month job, and I bid the job using my Expo email address, wrote out my email, making it sound professional, created my own little contract to make it seem like I was bigger than what I was, and that I was legit. And he said, sounds good. I need drop off August 18th. I'm like, all right, okay, let's do this. And so I landed my first job for 6 months. And so that trailer that I bought, I had to meet the hot shot at the location because of the turnaround time. I had to get financing for these trailers. So that was something I had never gone through. And man, they got me good looking back at it, but I didn't have any credit. So
they got you going.
They got me going, right? And then that trailer was there for a year.
Wow.
So it was, like you guys, or specifically you, it was a gravy train.
I remember that plain as day because I remember how excited you were when you called. Like, dude, I got it.
Dude, I remember being so pumped up. I'm like, I freaking got it. I mean, that's real dollars. Like at the time, 6 months and the job, and I think it was $5,800 a month.
Yeah, your pricing was good.
And I was like, man, that's about $36,000. Like that. I mean, for a young guy just getting out of college, that's real money. I would say for most people, that's real money.
At the time, I think that's probably about what you had into the whole trailer too.
Oh yeah. When the trailers are that priced, yeah, that's true. The trailers do not cost that much anymore, but it is what it is. But it was then once I bought that one, I leveraged that purchase to buy my second trailer, right? Because I had the cash flow of $6,000 a month roughly that I knew, like, okay, if I'm generating $6,000 a month, I can still make my $2,400 strokes on a second trailer. So then the second trailer, I would hustle for weekend events or try to find more long terms. And that's really how it grew organically. That one sitting and using the other one, and then that one on a long term, and then trying to buy other ones.
I mean, you managed to you were still kind of having dual function with Expo as well as Lavatory far longer than most of my clients I see. But what would you say that tipping point would be where it would be tough to make it a side hustle? Where it's
where they hire people?
Yeah, where the point where it's just too much work for you individually to do.
Probably when I got to 6 trailers.
Yep.
That's when it got difficult. I think I bought a truck once I hit 3 trailers, like my own, instead of using my dad's truck. But probably 6 trailers, because it was just, I mean, when it's event season, it's crazy, right? Like I can't make the schedule, or you can't dictate when the events are, and then when the trailer commitments are, or if there's problems. So I think around 6 trailers, that's when I started needing help and hired some people to help me do deliveries and started training, and again, very much part-time weekend warrior kind of things.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was.
So, I mean, you might be somewhat of an anomaly, but the people looking to get into this, and it's a side hustle for them that do want to scale this to get to the point that this is their full-time, profession. What kind of time frame would you put on that to get to that 6 trailer mark?
I don't know if I would say put a time frame on it. I think it really depends on how aggressive you want to be, right? So luckily for me, because I worked a salary position, I didn't rely on the income that the lavatory provided.
Mm-hmm.
I could really reinvest everything. So that's what made it, quote unquote, easier. I don't know if I could put a time frame on how quickly you can scale to that size. It just depends on what kind of revenues that you're pulling in and what your expenses are.
How quickly would you? I'm trying to look back. How quickly do you think you got up to 6?
Oh, 6 trailers.
Yeah, when you're kind of when it's that tipping point of this is a little too much work to be doing both. I mean, how quickly would you make it to 6? I feel like
I think it was pretty fast. Yeah. It was for a CarMax job.
Yes.
And it's when I bought my first 9 station, I think it was the first. It was either the first year or the second year. Everything kind of just merges together now. But it was around Christmas time, and I was so nervous that I was like, man, I'm going to buy some more of these things. I'm going to get a 9 station. And I think it was around Christmas time. And I don't know. I think it took me at least 6 months. Sorry, I don't know if it's a good answer.
I don't know the specific dates, but that's about. I remember you getting up there.
I
within the first year for sure.
I remember dropping off a trailer at CarMax on New Year's Eve because that's when they needed it on site, and so it was like, scary time, but I mean, just scary because it was a different world, right? Like it's dealing with financing, dealing with how I'm going to make these payments, and now looking at it, I'm like, okay, it's obviously different, but it's definitely when you jump in, the unknown. You're scared because you don't know. Not so much. Right. You're always afraid of something you don't know. That. and that was a good. It all turned out luckily.
Yeah, quite well.
So would you say? I can remember, the trying to get financing with you and. That being a challenge. Would you say that was the biggest challenge in scaling?
Probably. And my parents didn't pay for anything. My parents wouldn't co-sign. Like that's like a hard rule they have with all their kids. Like that is, they won't risk their credit that they've worked so hard for us. And I'm the youngest of 5, so they're very strict on that. So financing was very difficult. When I got up to trailer, I think 12 or 13, they stopped financing me. Like they were like, no, you're too young. It's a weird business. And I had Ascentium, I had Stearns, I had Partners Capital, and Allegiant Partners. 4 different finance companies, and none of them.
They all.
Yeah, because they were like, well, you already have this. Because I had to go through them to finance all the other trailers.
Yep.
And so after that point, I had a pretty good cash flow because I'd landed some long-term jobs. So the trusty American Express, man, that was scary. So I had to buy them based on, giving me 60 days to come up with 50 grand to pay for the units. I was very cash poor for a very long time.
Yeah. Boy, that growth rate, that's understandable.
And it wasn't until I got to like trailer 30, I think, that I refied all my debt with an SBA loan.
I remember that.
And so I was able to gather them all together. Unfortunately, equipment finance companies are vampires, so everything is set rates. Like there's no, when you refi a loan, you can reduce to a lower interest rate. Well, they don't use interest rates. They're just, this is the rates.
Yep.
So there's no real benefit to refining besides the cash flow every month of what your bills are. So I got my first SBA loan there, and then I think with that SBA I bought 10 more trailers, and that's when I bought some larger showers.
The 8-unit showers.
Yeah, and a laundry, I think.
Yep.
And but I had already purchased 2. I think I already had 2 shower trailers under my belt, 2 station combos for that school with the electrical packages on them.
Yes,
like
I remember.
Crazy amount of power.
The 240 volt.
Because they're not allowed to use propane for some reason in California for certain locations. California. But so yeah, that's kind of, and then after that point, a lot of it was just reinvest. Again, continue to reinvest because I didn't need to. I'm a pretty basic guy, or I don't need a lot of stuff, right? And so I just kept reinvesting into the business, and when you have 25 trailers working, you can start building up a little cash flow to be able to buy more units.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in the beginning, though, I mean, cash flow was obviously an issue, and banks weren't going to give you the money. The equipment finance route was the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's better to go through equipment financing than not get anything at all. So it was the only, really the only option. And banks are still kind of weird in general, unless it's like a SBA, because banks don't really lend on equipment. Like they're not very familiar with it, and they won't. Yeah, they're just difficult in general to work with. I know I worked with a bank here, FNB,
Yep.
And they were cool. That was the only real bank I've worked with besides an SBA, and I still use equipment finance companies. I just make them bid against each other. I send one email and BCC all of them together, and I make it really generic, and I send them an email saying whoever gets the best rate wins, and they go at it.
Yeah.
And so this company wants this, and then they try to sell the relationship. I'm like, dude, once I sign this over, there's no other follow up. How a relationship are we trying? That's a fiduciary responsibility to make sure I get the best rate, and that's what I tell them. Hopefully, I announce the word properly when I tell them.
We'll take that.
Aside from financing, what would you say the biggest challenge was in scaling from one trailer to where you are today?
I think it took me a while to be able to balance between Expo and the Lavatory, right? So for my situation, I had to create a team to be able to fulfill everything while I was also at Expo, because the goal was to take over the family company. And obviously, I have that loyalty to my parents and sense of duty to make sure things get taken care of. So those who are familiar with event rentals or party rentals, you know how much of a nightmare it can happen so fast. And sometimes you just gotta play firefighter, and just a difficult. Anyway, so I had to develop a team, which took time to find the right people for the right jobs. And I wasn't in a rush per se. I just knew that whoever I hire is probably going to be here a long time, so it needs to be the right person.
Yeah.
and because they're running it without me, and so I really have to trust them. So that took some time to really hone into that area. Um, but as it's grown, it's been great to have a team that's set in place.
Oh, it's extremely important.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember when we first talked there, I don't recall you having a lot of, I don't want to say support, but I don't think anybody was saying, "Hey, man, you need to get into restrooms." You were kind of on your own on that one. Was there anything else besides seeing like the demand coming into party rental? Was there anything else that made you say, "I'm doing this. This is where I'm going"?
Well, I remember the first time when I bought 2 trailers, when I had like signed the paperwork. I think it was a Sunday because I wasn't sure what to do, and so I was like praying, like, "Is this what I want to do? Is this not?" And so I just signed it on the Sunday, and then I went and told an older gentleman that I look up to. I told him what I'd done, and he was like, "That's cool." And I could tell in the back of his mind, like,
"Hey, this guy's crazy.
What are you doing?" And I'm like, I can't expect them to understand either, right? But people, I told them what I'm doing, they were all so, even to this day,
Oh yeah,
people are very confused. And it's fine. I'm totally good with them being confused. But I know my dad, when he started seeing numbers come in, he was like, "So Mijo, what, tell me about these trailers." Like at first, he was so, not against it, but very cautious. He's like, "Are you going to be able to come up with that money to make every month?" I'm like, "Hope so. I think so. The numbers makes sense if I pre-sell it." And eventually came to a point where he wanted to get in on it. I'm like, and then my mom quickly was like, "This is his. Leave him alone." And
once you prove the concept,
yeah,
then
exactly. It's like, "Here's some money for them." I'm like, yeah. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. No, we see that a lot because it's there's a lot of businesses out there that people are always encouraging you to get into. "Oh, you should do this, you should do this." And this is one of those businesses that most people look at you like you're crazy when you say, "I'm going to get into the restroom trailer business." And it's just funny to hear how people made that leap to kind of jump over the hurdles that people are throwing in front of you.
Yeah, it's definitely a hidden industry. I mean, you don't see people graduating with their MBA. I don't have an MBA, but you don't see people graduating from business school and just like, "I want to go into the sanitation industry."
Yep.
Like it's not a very sexy industry because it's just not thought about, until you need it, right? And yeah, and to our benefit, it's good that it's not a sexy industry.
Yeah, not everyone wants to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
How important would you say? I mean, obviously you've grown in 6 years from 1 trailer to over 150. That's a lot. That's huge.
Yeah.
How important would you say marketing was in that role?
Dude, that was all of it. I mean, if you don't have a good marketing plan, you're not going to be visible. You're going to be invisible. I mean, I see players even now that buy trailers, yet they don't even have a website set up or a Google My Business listing, or they just don't have the infrastructure. It's like putting the cart before the horse. While it's good to have the units, and it's good, but you're not. It's better to pre-sell things and then have the units. Like prove the concept first, where your area is, then continue to build. Right.
Yep.
Like so you're not so stressed out because you've built the concept, you have the website, you get the calls, and so if you don't have a trailer, just say it's unavailable for that day. Like for me, when I started, I don't know if you guys ever noticed this, but on my website, I had all the trailers. I had all the different size restrooms, the combos, the ADAs, showers. I had 2 trailers.
I remember the first time you sold one. Oh boy! Fast.
Yeah, I only had 2 trailers, but I listed as if I had everything, because you want to look bigger than what you are, right? You want to prove it. Well, seem legitimate, right? Because you're at the point where you need to build legitimacy, so at least seem legitimate.
Yep.
And that's how I built my fleet, was based, and that's why I have more than one of all of those units now, and because I demonstrated that I had that equipment, and then people would request, and then sometimes the perfect request would come in. Well, that would justify purchasing the units. Yep. And usually, like for example, it was trailer 11 and 12 were 2-station combos that we talked about earlier, and I got a request in for a school, that they needed it for 8 months. And I was like, well, if I want to buy one, I can buy two because that one rental will pay for at least the financing of it, will pay for both of them. So have that one at the site and use the other one for other gigs, So it was a lot of those kind of purchases that organically built like to the fleet that we have today. But marketing, back to your original question, was that was really that you're invisible unless you have marketing.
Is it safe to say that most of your sales come off of inbound leads that are generated from your marketing?
Definitely. I know you can go to construction sites and knock doors and stuff like that, but I don't think that's a wise use of time. I'm not saying it doesn't work. At least for us, we haven't done that. It's just primarily online marketing and positioning ourselves properly so people can find us. Because think of the customer experience, right? Like if you're a customer or a bride or a site superintendent, how are you? And you need a restroom trailer. It's not like you have someone on your phone that does restroom trailers.
Mm-hmm.
Like how often do you need restroom? You look it up, right? And make sure that you're someone that pops up so that they can contact you.
Yep, we give a similar example to a lot of customers that, unlike most traditional businesses, nobody has a clue where to get one of these things.
They're just rare and you don't know when you need them. So.
So one thing, when I get calls from customers that are especially customers looking to get into this and existing customers that have had trailers for a while, that so many people get into this thinking about special events. That's what they're jumping to. I'm going to rent this to weddings. I saw one at a wedding. And that's a great market. And they do. They get into that. And I have some customers that stay with that and grow their fleet just doing that. But inevitably, I'm always pushing them to be looking at long-term rentals and how that can grow your fleet and take less labor to do. And inevitably, I get calls from these customers. They get the call for one of these, and it's always, how do I price this? What's your feel between special event rentals and long-term, and how do you price them differently?
So I think a lot of it, you have to look at it as farming versus hunting, right? So hunting, if you do weekend events, you can make more money off weekend event rentals than you can at long-term how do I say this? So weekend events, there's 4 weekends in a month, arguably, and then, so say you rent a 5 for $2,000 a month. So that's $8,000 right there. So that's good. Or you can rent a 5 for $5,000 a month on a long-term site. Which isn't as much as 8,000, right? But the amount of touches you have to do and the value of the client is substantially higher, right? So the revenue per client is greater than the revenue per client in event rentals. So you have to kill 200 rabbits or with event rentals, right? Versus just getting one client or a few long-term clients and just plowing your fields, like it's less time, less labor, and longer term benefits than event rentals.
Yep. So I'd imagine those long terms, there's a lot less labor required. You need a lot less staff to handle the long term than you do the event rental side of things.
Sure. I think for my first 20 trailers, I only had one pump truck, and that was actually it wasn't even a truck; it was a trailer. Yeah, felt different story, but but because and I only had one guy doing 20 units, which now, I mean, if that was events only, 20 trailers, let's say half of them are rented on a weekend,
that'd be a serious weekend.
That'd be a difficult weekend, for someone. But they're primarily on long-term rentals, so they just service them through the week, and so it was much easier.
That's definitely one of the benefits of having the long-term rentals is you're not so subject to weekend fixed time.
Yeah, and you can double dip long terms, right? Like, if it's a Monday through Friday long term, say you're going to clean it or service it over the weekend and take it to an event and service it and clean it and bring it back to the long term.
Yep.
So there's
take it back to give it the deep clean,
Yeah, like the perfect storm is week-long event rental, a Saturday night event, and then a Sunday brunch or Sunday church service. So it's all about asset utilization, right? Making sure that asset is always working. So
Did you find that commonly? Were you able to get?
there were a few like gemstones like that we would run into. A few of them, like when the perfect storm happened, but not that often.
Yeah.
But they have all three. But we would definitely reuse long terms all the time because we had to. We didn't have any other choice.
I remember having that discussion with you. You were doing a lot of juggling for a period of time there.
Yeah.
So those long-term rentals too, I got to mention, like, when you're getting a 6-month, year-long rental, that you're getting that payment on a monthly basis. That really helps grow your fleet too, knowing that, hey, I can buy another trailer using the cash flow from this to pay it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it just depends on what you're trying to do, like what your end goal is. Is your goal to grow, or is your goal to cash out on it? With me, my goals have just been to grow, and so I've been able to reinvest all of that money into more units. Now, finally, I have some cash, which feels good. Not sure how long it'll last, but yeah, no, I have a little bit of a war chest though.
What's just very impressive what you've accomplished. That's a really awesome business you have there.
Thanks, guys. And again, like, I wouldn't be at this point if it wasn't for you guys. Like I can't tell you. Like, it's, I know it sounds like cheesy or corny. I don't know, but like, you guys. I mean, even selling me to do it, right? Like, even though I wasn't even sure about it, like, I am so grateful that I did it and I trusted you all. And obviously, yeah, it's what I make of it too, right? Like, I'm sure you sell people all the time, but they don't make anything of it. But I'm just grateful that I took the leap, and here we are today, right?
Yeah.
We have 5 different locations, different managers, different teams, loads of trailers. Like, yeah, who would have thought?
It's incredible.
Yeah, truly is amazing what you've done. So.
Yeah, it kind of leads me. One other thing is, along the way, I mean, obviously, we've kind of been a strategic partnership with you, but how about other people that own trailers, or how important was it to develop other partnerships along the way?
Yeah, I mean, you don't always have everything. So there's quite a few companies that I've had to reach out to that have been generally pretty friendly, right? It seems like it's a small enough group that everyone is willing to help each other and willing to work with one another, even locally and even like over, like, in different states, right? It's been really good to network with them and sub-rent their equipment. Sometimes they sub-rent my equipment. So those have been good resources to have.
Did you have like event planners or anything like that in the beginning that were booking trailers for you, or?
I hoped that there would have been more of that. I tried leveraging that more, and it just didn't work like I thought it was going to. Like, I was offering them 10% of the rental or $100, and that didn't really seem to motivate them. Organically, I did just get sales from event planners, but ones that I knew that I was trying to push because of Expo didn't really pan out as much as I thought it was going to. But it becomes a supply and demand problem during the busy season. Like, no one has units, so you're going to get the calls during your event seasons, and then build relationships from there.
So coming out of, your original location was in Fresno.
Mm-hmm.
You're up to 5 locations now?
Something like that. So Fresno, Northern California, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Salt Lake, and then we have some other yards, but they're not manned.
How did you go about doing that? Moving remotely, to me, seems like, for me, I've never done that. I've always been one location, and it seems like that would be a huge challenge.
It was a challenge. It was kind of a lot, basically, on how I started, right? Like, I teamed up with individuals I knew in those areas to help me grow a business. And then slowly but surely, I was able to land longer term jobs and other jobs that made sense to finance those areas, to start adding into those locations. I mean, it is very difficult to do, to remotely trying to manage. So, Las Vegas, flying guys in and flying guys out when there were problems, or out of Fresno, or like it's not easy, but it's mainly just the marketing that goes behind it, and just being patient with it, and then it'll organically grow itself.
Well, congratulations on
Yeah.
all your success. I mean, it's an amazing story. I mean, your timeline that you've been in doing this in business is very similar to the timeline we've been here. So, I mean, we've been fortunate to be able to partner with you and watch you from the beginning to here.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, huh? Yeah, it's yeah, it is crazy to think about everything. I mean, now I'm touring your shop today. It's like, holy moly! I mean, you have a great location here and great products. Like I was telling Adam, like, there's not really anything I would change. I mean, some of my trailers are 5 years old, but they all seem to be working still pretty gosh darn well. And so yeah, you guys have been a great partner over the years and a great source of counsel, information, and even though the 3-hour time change isn't always convenient for everyone,
that one gets to you sometimes.
But
I don't mind your late calls.
right, and but it's been great.
Well, we look forward to the next 5 to 10 years to see where both of us, both companies
Where we
are
could
at
be.
this point in time.
We'll see where we're at, man.
Well, thanks again for coming on. Congratulations.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's been another episode of the Lang podcast. Keep watching, and we'll have a new episode coming up soon.